Hi there, Dragon Nerds. This is Haddock. I'm going to be talking about the leitmotifs, or melodic themes that are within How to Train Your Dragon and How to Train Your Dragon 2. I figured that the easiest ways to talk about a melody was to pull out a musical instrument and play said melody. Now, I do want to give you a forewarning about this video. I only have so much time in my life, and this means, unfortunately, I am talking about the music without any script prepared ahead of time. So if I say something slightly incomprehensible or have verbal flubs within this video, I do apologize in advance. Nevertheless, I do hope that this can be an interesting opening discussion about the extraordinarily fascinating, intricate world that John Powell has, the symbolism of meaning behind the melodies in How to Train Your Dragon. I will note that lots of these themes I may have been talking about for years on my blog and analyzed in great depth, while others of these I've hardly touched, and the most I can say for right now are some preliminary impressions about what I believe that they symbolize. So with that, let's get started, and we'll get started with the Burke theme, the theme that we hear right at the start of How to Train Your Dragon with the opening phrase, "This is Burke." So this theme is, I think, the one that's the most closely associated with the island of Burke, Burke itself, and the people of Burke proper. So, as I said already, it is in the This is Burke opening theme every single time that Hiccup says This is Burke. But it's also in some other very interesting moments. For instance, if you just change the key signature and play it a little bit faster, it's also Astrid Goes for a Spin. Wow, I should actually have practiced this. About this moment in This is Astrid Goes for a Spin is that Astrid is the model Viking citizen of Burke. She is what represents what Burke is. During Astrid Goes for a Spin, she's flying on the back of a dragon, and this is the moment where her entire worldview begins to change. This is the moment where Astrid, and later all of Burke, starts to change in its identity about how it relates to dragons. This theme of Burke is. Therefore, Burke's theme is very appropriate in moments like Astrid Goes for a Spin or This Time Horsesure, in which Astrid is emulating what it is to be a model Burke citizen. Now, Astrid herself has her own theme, and it is what people I've often heard call romantic flight theme, because lo and behold, that's the track in How to Train Your Dragon where we hear the melody most prominently. Within this theme, for instance, it's even played once with Rough Nut when it's making a joke about the love triangle Rough Nut's in How to Train Your Dragon 2. That's not romance being the center point of this theme. This theme's actually more about Astrid herself. For instance, we will hear this theme when Astrid is introducing How to Train Your Dragon 2 during dragon racing. It's a very bold version of this melody, but it gets the point home that this music is not about the romance, it's about Astrid herself as a person. So there's a theme in How to Train Your Dragon that I've talked about being Hiccup's relationship with Toothless. It's one of the most frequently iterated themes in the first How to Train Your Dragon movie, which makes sense given as so much of How to Train Your Dragon is about Hiccup's relationship with Toothless. About this theme is that it has a wide variety of ways that it is orchestrated. At the start of How to Train Your Dragon, you'll notice that it's played in a very ominous, mysterious fashion, and that reflects Hiccup's current relationship with dragons, and with Toothless in particular. Dragons are something to be feared. They're mysterious, they're beyond reach. But as the movie How to Train Your Dragon continues, the way that this melody is performed changes. Hiccup's relationship with Toothless changes, how this melody is orchestrated is changed. And it becomes something that is bold, powerful, and beautiful. In the end, this motif becomes an anthem for how to Train Your Dragon is a story about flying on dragons. It's a wonderful, powerful, beautiful thing, just like Hiccup's friendship with the dragon. Now, Toothless himself has several themes, at least as I personally analyze the dragon. There's one theme specifically for How to Train Your Dragon 2, and then one theme that I feel like represents the dragon in the first How to Train Your Dragon film. So let me pull up the melody very quickly, and I'll play it for you. And this is played in some very notable instances. I've talked about how, in previous analyses, I've talked about how this is played whenever Toothless is in grave danger. There's a very sinister, specific way in which is orchestrated that you hear this melody. You also hear this melody very prominently when Hiccup meets Toothless. Shortly after Hiccup cuts Toothless's bonds and Toothless charges right up in Hiccup's face, that moment when the dragon's eyes lock with Hiccup's, you hear this theme loud and clear. And what's also cool is how this theme very frequently integrates with other melodies from John Powell's symbolic repertoire. So for instance, at the start of Test Drive, we begin with this theme, this nice happy da 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 da. But then we add on top of it the theme of Hiccup's relationship with Toothless. So we have the music about the dragon getting played in very close parallel with the boy's impression of the dragon. And therefore we get this really cool statement, underlying meta commentary about what's happening in the film from the musical notes. Now, if you're wondering what Toothless's theme in the second How to Train Your Dragon film is, it's one that in the past I've called the Vigilante theme, and which many people have interpreted to be Volka's theme rather than Toothless's. I've written a number of analyses defending my point of view, which you can read in further depth, but I'll quickly go over it here. Anyway, let's just go over from the Art of How to Train Your Dragon 2. In that art book, John Powell talks about how he wrote a theme specifically for Toothless. And if you read through his commentary there, you can sort of narrow down what new themes from How to Train Your Dragon 2 could possibly refer to Toothless. Now, what's interesting about this theme is that it is something I believe starts as a generic protector of the dragons theme. And it's something that is Volka. She's the dragon vigilante. She's the person who's protecting dragons. But over time, in How to Train Your Dragon 2, what becomes of Toothless is the alpha who protects them all. And Toothless assumes the role of the protector of dragons. And by the fighting sequences that we get near the end of How to Train Your Dragon 2 between Drago's bewilderbeast, Hiccup, and Toothless, we are hearing this theme played over and over and over again. And we know that it's not about Volka. This is about Toothless. Another theme that Toothless, interestingly enough, another theme that Toothless adopts in How to Train Your Dragon 2, and that's the alpha theme. This theme is played very grandly when Hiccup enters Volka's dragon sanctuary and meets the alpha of dragons. It refers to Volka's bewilderbeast at the time, but we can tell that this theme is not about the bewilderbeast. It's about the role of being a dragon leader. By the end of How to Train Your Dragon 2, we get the track 2 new alphas. And this is the longest time that the alpha theme plays, is during 2 new alphas. And who is it representing? The new alpha of dragons, Toothless. Now, there's one more theme in the first How to Train Your Dragon that I should probably mention. It's one that I haven't analyzed in depth, so we probably should take my analysis of it with a bit of leeway. The way that I personally interpret it at a first glance is that it's Berk at peace. This theme is often played during the more light-hearted, calm, everyday moments of Berk. It's not when there's anything bad going on, but it's usually some pretty friendly but peaceful conversation happening. And that's why I've currently been calling it Berk at Peace. There's one more theme in How to Train Your Dragon that I'm not quite sure about, and that's because I haven't really analyzed it. At the moment, I'm calling it a change or a progress theme, though maybe somebody else who's thought about this theme a little bit more can say something more inspirational and in-depth than what I've got right now. Note slides, whatever. So this one, the reason why I'm currently calling it in change or in progress or development theme is that I remember this being played during a lot of the key instances where Hiccup is doing something that's going to eventually change his and Toothless's life or change Berk's life. For instance, when he's creating Toothless's new table, that's something that's monumental for the two of them, and it's going to give very much progress in forward direction. What's the theme that we hear? This one. There's also a war theme that is heard in the How to Train Your Dragon stories, and that is this one. And this is played usually when the Vikings are at war or preparing for war with dragons. So it's played in the opening montage of the first movie when the Vikings are fighting the dragons at night. We also hear this played very boldly during Ready the Ships. What is Stoic doing? He's preparing all of Berk's fighting forces to fight the dragons. You also hear some more innocuous versions of this theme, though, around Hiccup at the start of How to Train Your Dragon. For instance, when Hiccup is wandering Berk's forest, you hear this theme. And you have to think about the fact that Hiccup is currently searching for Toothless to try to kill the dragon, and thus continue on the legacy of Berk's multi-generational war against the dragons. In How to Train Your Dragon 2, one of the main themes that revolves around Hiccup is one that is about him being undeveloped and uncertain of himself. It's Hiccup as a boy. And it's a very meandering, wandering sort of theme. And what's interesting about this is that, Hiccup is wandering around and he's exploring the world, but that's in part because he doesn't understand himself, and so he's fidgeting and restless inside of him too. Hiccup's unsure of himself, and this is the theme that shows that Hiccup lacks an understanding of himself. So, it's to note that the last time that we hear this theme of Hiccup as a boy is when Stoic dies. Once Stoic dies, Hiccup can no longer question what his identity is. He can no longer question what his future is or what his role with Berk is going to be. That's because it's decided for him. Stoic's dead, Hiccup has to be chief, and therefore he's no longer going to be that uncertain boy. We're no longer going to hear this music anymore. Villains, of course, have got to have themes, and Drago's got his own ominous theme that's about him, his armies possessing the barbaric archipelago, and being a threat to dragonkind. And the last theme which I am going to talk about is the Stalka theme. So the theme about Stoic and Valka's love. And you hear it in multiple instances, heartbreakingly enough during Stoic ship, but the one that everyone remembers this for is, of course, for the dancing and the dreaming.